The colony world called New Haven was a beautiful place. It had green fields, blue skies, and mountains that touched the clouds. Over 1 million people lived there. They had built cities, schools, and parks. Children played in the streets. Families grew food in their gardens. Everyone was happy and safe, or so they thought. Captain Daniel Morrison was a cargo ship pilot. His ship was called the Meridian Dawn. He flew supplies between different human colonies. Daniel was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been flying ships for 20 years. His crew loved him because he was fair and calm. On this particular day, Daniel was preparing for a normal supply run to New Haven. His crew of 48 people was busy loading boxes and checking systems. The ship smelled like coffee and engine oil. Daniel stood on the bridge looking at the stars through the big window. He held a warm cup of coffee in his hands. Lieutenant Amy Phillips sat at her station. She was young, only 25 years old, with short black hair and sharp eyes. She was very good at her job. Amy was checking communications when something strange appeared on her screen. Her face went pale. "Captain, I'm getting a distress signal from New Haven," she said. Her voice was shaking. Daniel put down his coffee and walked over quickly. "Put it through," he ordered. What they heard made everyone on the bridge freeze. There were screams, explosions, and the sound of weapons firing. Then a man's voice came through. It was Governor Peter Hayes, the leader of New Haven Colony. "This is New Haven. We are under attack. Unknown ships appeared without warning. They are bombing us from space. They are killing everyone. Please, someone help us. They won't stop. They won't even talk to us. They just want us dead. Oh God, they're hitting the schools now." The children... The transmission ended with a terrible sound of breaking metal and glass. Then there was only silence. Daniel felt cold all over. For a moment, nobody on the bridge could speak. Then Daniel grabbed his communication device. "Get me Earth Command immediately," he said. His voice was hard now, like steel. Within minutes, Admiral Nicole Carter appeared on the screen. She was a strong-looking woman with silver hair and a serious face. She had been in the military for 30 years. "Admiral, New Haven is under attack," Daniel said. He played the recording for her. Nicole listened with no expression on her face, but her hands gripped the arms of her chair tightly. When the recording ended, she was quiet for a few seconds. "How far are you from New Haven?" she asked. 43 hours if we push our engines hard," Daniel answered. "Go now," Nicole ordered. "Go as fast as you can. I will send every military ship in that area. Daniel, I need to warn you. When you get there, you might not like what you find." "I understand, Admiral," Daniel said. The Meridian Dawn turned and began racing toward New Haven. The engines roared as the ship moved faster and faster. Daniel's crew worked without stopping. Everyone was scared, but they had a job to do. Back on Earth, Admiral Nicole immediately called a meeting. She contacted every military base, every ship captain, and every government leader. The message was simple and terrible. One of humanity's colonies was being attacked by unknown aliens. Over 1 million people were in danger. As Daniel's ship flew through space, he thought about New Haven. He had been there many times. He knew the streets and the people. He had friends there. Now they might all be dead. Lieutenant Amy Phillips kept trying to contact New Haven, but there was no answer. Just silence. The silence was worse than the screams. Lieutenant Marcus Cole, the ship's communication officer, sat at his station with his head in his hands. He had family on New Haven. His sister and her 3 children lived there. "Marcus," Daniel said softly, "we will get there as fast as we can." Marcus nodded but didn't look up. Everyone on the ship knew what he was feeling. They were all feeling it too. Fear, anger, and helplessness. The hours passed slowly. The Meridian Dawn flew faster than it had ever flown before. The engines were running so hot that the engineers had to keep cooling them down. But nobody complained. Everyone wanted to get to New Haven. Finally, after 43 long hours, they arrived at the edge of the New Haven system. What they saw made them all feel sick. The planet was burning. From space, they could see huge fires covering the continents. Cities that used to shine with lights were now just black craters. The space stations that orbited the planet were destroyed, floating in pieces. "Scan for life signs," Daniel ordered. His voice was quiet but firm. Amy worked her controls with shaking hands. Her screen showed numbers and graphs. She looked at them for a long time. Then she looked up at Daniel with tears in her eyes. "Captain, I'm reading no life signs in any of the cities. Everything is dead. But wait, there's something. I'm detecting a bunker in the southern part of the planet. It's deep underground and heavily protected. There might be people alive in there. Daniel felt a tiny bit of hope. How many? I can't tell from here. Maybe a few hundred at most, Amy said. Set course for that bunker, Daniel ordered. And tell me about those ships in orbit. Amy checked her screens again. Sir, there are 47 alien warships circling the planet. They're still bombing the surface. They're making sure nothing survives. Daniel looked at the alien ships on his screen. They were big and dark, shaped like insects. They didn't look like any ship design he had ever seen, and his cargo ship had almost no weapons, just some small lasers for shooting space rocks. We can't fight them, Marcus said quietly. We're not going to fight them, Daniel said. We're going to sneak past them and save whoever is still alive down there. His crew looked at him like he was crazy, but they also smiled a little. This was why they followed Daniel Morrison. He never gave up. The Meridian Dawn began its descent toward the planet. They used every trick they knew to hide from the alien ships. They flew low over mountains. They hid in the smoke from the burning cities. They moved slowly and carefully. The alien ships above them kept bombing the planet. They seemed focused on destroying everything. They didn't notice one small cargo ship sneaking through the clouds below them. As they got closer to the bunker, Daniel could see the destruction more clearly. Entire cities were melted into glass. Forests were burning. Rivers had boiled away. The aliens had tried to kill every living thing on New Haven. Who are these monsters? Amy whispered. Why would they do this? I don't know, Daniel said. But they just made a terrible mistake. They attacked humanity, and humanity never forgets. The Meridian Dawn landed near the bunker entrance with a heavy thump. Daniel and his crew could see the thick metal door built into the side of a mountain. It was covered with dirt and rocks, camouflaged to look natural, but it was still there and it was still closed. Try to make contact, Daniel told Amy. Amy sent a signal to the bunker. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, very slowly, the heavy door began to open. It made a grinding sound like it hadn't been used in a long time. People started coming out of the darkness. They looked terrible. Their clothes were torn and dirty. Many were injured with bandages made from ripped cloth. Some were crying. Others just stared at nothing with empty eyes. Children held onto their parents tightly. Daniel and his crew rushed to help them. They guided the survivors onto the ship. There were 217 people, all that remained of New Haven's 1 million colonists. Among the survivors was Governor Peter Hayes. He was a tall man with gray hair, but now he looked much older. His left arm was in a sling and his face was covered in cuts and bruises. When he saw Daniel, he grabbed his shoulder with his good hand. You came, Peter said. His voice was rough and broken. I didn't think anyone would make it in time. We're here now, Governor, Daniel said. Let's get you and these people to safety. Safety? Peter laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Captain, there is no safety. Not anymore. Those things up there, they're called the Krell, and they're not going to stop with us. Daniel helped Peter into the ship. As his crew loaded the last survivors aboard, Peter told him everything that had happened. The Krell ships had appeared 3 days ago without any warning. They didn't send messages or make demands. They just started shooting. Their weapons came down from space like rain. The first strikes hit the biggest cities. Millions of people died in minutes. The military tried to fight back, but the Krell ships were too strong and too many. Human defense ships were destroyed easily. Then the Krell started bombing everything else. Farms, small towns, even places where nobody lived. They wanted everything dead. Peter and a few hundred others had made it to the emergency bunker. They sealed the door and waited. For 3 days they listened to the bombs falling above them. They had no food, little water, and no hope. Until Daniel arrived. Why? Daniel asked. Why did they attack? Peter pulled out a small data chip from his pocket. We managed to record one of their crashed ships. Our security team investigated it before they were killed. The Krell are part of something called the Dominion. From what we could understand of their language, they see other species as inferior, as things to be removed. They're trying to exterminate us, Daniel said slowly, understanding. Yes, Peter confirmed. And Captain, New Haven was just a test. We intercepted some of their communications. They're planning to attack more human colonies. They want to wipe us out completely. Daniel felt anger burning in his chest. He took the data chip and put it in his pocket. Thank you, Governor. This information will help. The ship lifted off from the burning planet. As they climbed back toward space, Daniel looked down one last time at New Haven. The beautiful world he remembered was gone. Now it was just a dead rock covered in fire and ash. "Captain, the Krell ships are moving," Amy said suddenly. "They're turning toward us." "They've spotted us," Marcus added. "They're powering up weapons," Daniel's mind raced. His ship was slow and had no real weapons. If the Krell decided to shoot, they would all die. But then something appeared on his screen that made him smile. "Captain, I'm reading multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel," Amy said. Her voice was excited now. "It's the Earth Defense Fleet. 20 warships just arrived." The military ships appeared between the Meridian Dawn and the Krell vessels. They were big and powerful, with weapons that could tear apart planets. The Earth ships immediately opened fire on the Krell. The Krell ships tried to fight back, but they were surprised and outnumbered. Within an hour, all 47 Krell vessels were destroyed or fleeing. The space around New Haven was clear. Admiral Nicole Carter's face appeared on Daniel's screen. "Nice work, Captain Morrison. I'm glad you got some people out." 217 survivors, Admiral," Daniel reported, "out of 1.2 million. Nicole's face showed no emotion, but her eyes were full of pain. "Bring them home, Captain. And give me that data chip Governor Hayes mentioned. We need to know what we're fighting." Daniel transmitted all the information from the chip. The images showed the Krell clearly. They were big creatures standing about 9 feet tall. They looked like giant insects with hard shells covering their bodies. They had 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws. Their faces had huge compound eyes that reflected light in a strange way. But the worst part was the video of Krell soldiers walking through New Haven's capital city. The recording showed them finding human survivors and killing them without hesitation. Men, women, children, elderly people. The Krell killed them all. They showed no mercy, no emotion. They just killed and moved on. Nicole watched the video in silence. When it ended, she spoke in a voice that was cold and hard. "Captain Morrison, you and your crew will be honored for your bravery. But right now I need you to take those survivors to Earth. Keep them safe." "Yes, Admiral," Daniel said. "What are you going to do?" Nicole looked directly into the camera. "I'm going to call a meeting of every military leader in human space. The Krell have declared war on humanity. They think we're weak because we didn't see them coming. They think we'll be easy to destroy. And will we?" Daniel asked. Nicole smiled, but it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator. "No, Captain. We won't be easy to destroy. In fact, the Krell just made the worst mistake of their entire existence. They hurt us. They killed our people. They murdered our children. And now they're going to learn what happens when you make humanity angry." Daniel nodded. He understood what she meant. Humanity might not have started this war, but humanity was going to finish it. As the Meridian Dawn began its journey back to Earth, Daniel walked through his ship checking on the survivors. He saw families holding each other. He saw people crying for loved ones who were gone forever. He saw the hollow looks in their eyes. Governor Peter Hayes was sitting in the cargo bay staring at nothing. Daniel sat down next to him. "We should have been ready," Peter said quietly. "We should have had more defenses, more weapons, more warning systems." "You couldn't have known," Daniel said. "That's the problem," Peter replied. "We thought we were safe. We thought that if we just stayed peaceful and didn't bother anyone, we would be left alone. But the Krell didn't care about that. They didn't care about peace or diplomacy or anything else. They just wanted us dead. They won't get away with this," Daniel promised. Peter looked at him with tired eyes. "What can we do? Did you see their ships? Their weapons? They're stronger than us." Daniel thought about Admiral Nicole's words. Maybe they're stronger, but there's something they don't know about humans. "What's that?" "When you hurt us, we don't hide. We don't give up. We get angry, and when humanity gets angry, we become very dangerous." The assembly hall on Earth was completely full. Every important military person from every human colony was there. Some came in person, traveling for weeks to attend. Others appeared as holograms, their images projected from distant worlds. The room was designed to hold 300 people, but now over 1,000 faces looked down at the central floor. Admiral Nicole Carter stood in the middle of the room. Behind her, huge screens showed images from New Haven. The burning cities, the destroyed ships, and worst of all, the videos of Krell soldiers killing human civilians. Nobody in the room spoke. They all watched in horror. When the videos ended, the room exploded with noise. Everyone started shouting at once. Some people were angry. Others were scared. All of them wanted answers. "We must attack them now," shouted Admiral Gregory Stone. He commanded the Mars Defense Fleet, which protected the colonies around Mars. He was a big man with a red face and a loud voice. "Every day we wait, they get stronger. But we don't know enough about them," argued General Linda Price. She was in charge of the military bases near Jupiter. She was a careful woman who liked to plan everything. "How many ships do they have? Where do they come from? We can't just rush into battle without information." "Information?" Nicole's voice cut through the noise like a knife. Everyone stopped talking and looked at her. "They killed 1.2 million people in one day. They killed children, elderly people, everyone. They didn't ask for information before they attacked us. Why should we?" The room fell silent. Nicole was right, and everyone knew it. Then an old man stood up slowly. He was Fleet Admiral Kenneth Hayes, the most respected military leader in human space. He was 83 years old and had fought in every major war for the past 50 years. His hair was completely white and his face was covered with wrinkles. But his eyes were still sharp and clear. "The Krell made a choice," Kenneth said. His voice was quiet, but everyone listened carefully. "They chose an isolated colony far from our main defenses. They wanted to see how we would react. They wanted to test us." He paused and looked around the room. "I say we give them a reaction they will never forget." "What do you mean, Admiral?" someone asked. Kenneth smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "For 40 years we have been building ships. We told ourselves they were for defense, for exploration, for trade. But we built them strong and we built them with weapons. We have shipyards around every major planet. We have factories in the asteroid belts. We have the ability to build more ships than any other species in known space." "You want to build an attack fleet?" Nicole said. "Not just an attack fleet," Kenneth replied. "I want to build the biggest military force in the history of the galaxy. I want every human world to contribute ships and soldiers. I want our enemies to look up at the sky and see so many human warships that the stars disappear." The room erupted in discussion again. Some people thought it was a great idea. Others thought it was too extreme. But everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity needed to respond with strength. Admiral Gregory spoke up. "How many ships are we talking about?" Nicole pulled up a star map showing Krell territory. Their space was huge, covering 30 star systems. Intelligence reports suggested they had tens of thousands of warships. "To defeat them completely, we would need at least 800,000 warships," Nicole said. The number made everyone gasp. "We would need to mobilize every shipyard, every factory, every construction facility. We would need to convert civilian ships into military vessels. We would need to draft crews from merchant ships. This would take years." "Then we start today," Kenneth said firmly. "I propose full mobilization Protocol 7. This means total war. Every human world must contribute. Every resource goes to building this fleet. Every person who can help must help." "That's everything," someone said. "You're talking about putting our entire civilization on a war footing." "Yes," Kenneth said simply. "Because if we don't, the Krell will destroy us all. They've shown us what they want. Now we show them what happens when you attack humanity." Nicole called for a vote. The question was simple. Should humanity mobilize everything for total war against the Krell? Should they build 800,000 warships and prepare for the biggest military campaign in human history? Every single person voted yes. Not one person voted no. The decision was unanimous. As people began to leave the hall to start their work, Nicole stood alone looking at the screens. The image showed a frozen picture of a Krell soldier standing over a dead human child. She stared at it for a long time. "We're coming for you," she whispered to the image. "You wanted to see what humanity could do. Now you'll find out." The mobilization began immediately. On Earth, old factories that had been closed for years were reopened. New factories were built in months instead of years. Shipyards that used to make cargo vessels now made warships. The asteroid belt became one giant construction zone. On Mars, the military academies doubled their class sizes. Young men and women signed up to join the military in numbers that shocked everyone. Nobody needed to be drafted. People volunteered because they wanted revenge for New Haven. On the outer colonies near Jupiter and Saturn, mining operations increased dramatically. They needed metal to build ships, and the asteroid fields had plenty of metal. Miners worked day and night pulling ore from rocks that had floated in space for billions of years. Every human world contributed. Small colonies that had only a few million people pooled their resources to build a single warship. Rich worlds built hundreds of ships. Earth itself planned to build 200,000 warships. Captain Daniel Morrison was promoted to Commodore and given command of a new battleship. It was called the Retribution, and it was one of the most powerful ships ever built. It was over a mile long and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Lieutenant Amy Phillips became his tactical officer. Lieutenant Marcus Cole remained his communication officer. They brought most of their old crew with them from the Meridian Dawn. Everyone wanted to be part of this mission. Daniel stood on the bridge of his new ship and looked out at the construction yards around Earth. He could see hundreds of ships being built at the same time. Sparks flew from welding torches. Robot arms moved massive pieces of metal into place. Transport ships carried parts between different construction sites. "It's incredible," Amy said, standing next to him. "I've never seen anything like this." "None of us have," Daniel replied. "This is what happens when you push humanity too far. We don't just fight back, we overwhelm you." 3 years passed. 3 long years of building, training, and preparing. Children who were in school when New Haven fell were now old enough to join the military. Retired soldiers came back to duty. Scientists developed new weapons and better shields. The Krell sent scouts to watch human space. They saw the massive buildup of ships and soldiers. Some Krell leaders began to worry. They had expected a small response, maybe a few dozen ships attacking their border worlds. Instead, they saw humanity building the largest military force in galactic history. But the Krell leadership was proud. They believed they were superior to humans. They thought their technology and their experience would win any battle. They prepared their own defenses and waited. What the Krell didn't understand was that they had awakened something in humanity. They had taken a peaceful species that just wanted to live and explore, and they had turned that species into a weapon. Every human alive wanted revenge for New Haven. Every shipyard worked toward one goal. Every soldier trained for one mission: the destruction of the Krell Dominion. Admiral Nicole Carter watched from her new flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Indomitable. It was the biggest ship ever built by humans, over 2 miles long and carrying enough firepower to level a planet. She would lead the Grand Armada from this ship. She received daily reports about the fleet's progress. The numbers kept growing. 500,000 ships ready, then 600,000, then 700,000. Each number represented thousands of people working together toward one goal. Finally, after 3 years, 7 months, and 14 days, the message went out to every human world. The Grand Armada was ready. It was time to gather the fleet. The meeting point was designated Rally Point Vengeance. It was an empty area of space far from any star, chosen because it was big enough to hold the entire fleet. Ships began arriving from every direction. Huge dreadnoughts from Earth, fast cruisers from Mars, carriers loaded with fighter ships from the outer colonies, destroyers, frigates, support vessels, and supply ships. They came from everywhere, and they kept coming. Commodore Daniel Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution and watched through the viewport as more ships continued to arrive at Rally Point Vengeance. He had been watching for 3 days now, and ships were still coming. The view was beyond anything he could have imagined. "Final count, Lieutenant Phillips," Daniel said. Amy looked at her screen, and her eyes went wide. "Sir, I'm counting 807 456 combat vessels. That doesn't include the support ships. If we count logistics, medical, and repair ships, we have over 1 million vessels total. The number of people in this fleet is 4.2 billion. Daniel let that number sink in. 4.2 billion people, all here for one purpose: to make the Krell pay for what they did to New Haven. He thought about the 217 survivors he had rescued 3 years ago. Now they were being avenged by the largest military force ever created. Lieutenant Marcus Cole spoke up from his station. "Sir, Admiral Carter is broadcasting to the fleet." Admiral Nicole Carter's face appeared on every screen in every ship. She looked older than she had 3 years ago. The weight of command had aged her, but her eyes were still fierce and determined. "Soldiers of humanity," she began. 3 years ago, the Krell Dominion attacked us without warning. They murdered our people. They killed our children. They tested our will to survive. She paused, and her expression hardened. "Today we give them our answer. Today we show them that humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive, and humanity always, always keeps its promises." The fleet erupted in cheers that echoed through the communication channels. On the Retribution, Daniel's crew shouted and clapped. They were ready. Everyone was ready. In the strategic planning room aboard the Indomitable, the final plans were being reviewed. All the senior commanders were there. Admiral Nicole Carter sat at the head of the table. Next to her was Fleet Admiral Kenneth Hayes, who had insisted on coming despite his age. Kenneth stood and activated a holographic display of Krell space. 30 star systems appeared, connected by trade routes and military supply lines. In the center was a large yellow star with a blue planet orbiting it. This is Krell Prime, Kenneth explained. Their homeworld. The heart of their civilization. Now the Krell expect us to attack their border worlds here. He pointed to the systems at the edge of their territory. They've moved most of their fleet to defend these systems. They think we'll fight our way through their space slowly, system by system. That would take years, said Admiral Gregory Stone, and cost us millions of casualties. Exactly, Kenneth said with a cold smile. That's what they expect. But we're not going to do that. We're going straight for Krell Prime. We're going to jump our entire fleet directly to their home system and force them to fight us there. General Linda Price frowned. That's 20 systems deep into enemy territory. We'll be surrounded. If we lose that battle, we lose everything. If we lose that battle, humanity is finished anyway, Kenneth replied. The Krell have made their intentions clear. They want to exterminate us, so we end this in one decisive battle. Winner takes everything. Nicole nodded. The Krell will have no choice but to pull every ship they have back to defend their homeworld. When they do, we destroy their entire fleet at once. No long war. No slow grinding battles. Just one massive engagement that settles everything. It's risky, someone said. War is always risky, Kenneth replied. But this gives us the best chance of winning quickly and completely. And it sends a message to every other species in the galaxy. Don't attack humanity. Daniel listened to the plan and understood its brilliance. It was bold and dangerous, but it could work. The Krell would never expect humanity to attack their homeworld directly. They would panic and pull all their forces back. And when they did, humanity would destroy them all at once. When do we leave? Daniel asked. Nicole checked the time. 36 hours. Use that time to prepare your crews. Let them rest. Write letters home and make peace with whatever they believe in. After tomorrow, nothing will be the same. Daniel returned to the Retribution and called his senior officers to a meeting. He explained the plan to them. They would jump directly to Krell Prime and engage the entire Krell fleet in one massive battle. The odds? Asked his weapons officer, Lieutenant Jake Murphy. He was a young man from Texas with a sharp mind for combat tactics. We outnumber them about 10 to 1, Amy answered. But their ships are individually more powerful than ours. They have better shields and stronger weapons. But we have more ships, Marcus added. A lot more ships. Exactly, Daniel said. The strategy is simple. We overwhelm them with numbers. For every ship they destroy, we have 10 more to take its place. We just keep coming until they have nothing left. The meeting broke up and the crew had 36 hours to prepare. Some people slept. Others played cards or watched movies. Many wrote letters to their families back home just in case they didn't return. Daniel wrote a letter to his sister on Earth. He told her he was proud to be part of this mission. He told her that New Haven would be avenged. He told her that if he didn't come back, she should know he died doing something important. The 36 hours passed quickly. Soon it was time. Admiral Nicole broadcast one final message to the fleet. All ships prepare for faster-than-light jump. Destination, Krell Prime. This is it, people. This is what we've been building toward for 3 years. Remember New Haven, remember why we're here, and show the Krell what happens when they mess with humanity. 807,456 warships activated their faster-than-light drives at the same moment. Space itself seemed to tear apart as the massive fleet disappeared from Rally Point Vengeance. They traveled through the strange dimension that allowed faster-than-light travel. It took 6 hours to cross the distance to Krell Prime. During that time, everyone on every ship was quiet. They knew what was coming. They knew that in a few hours they would either win the biggest victory in human history or die trying. Daniel sat in his command chair and thought about the journey that had brought him here. 3 years ago, he was just a cargo pilot making supply runs between colonies. Now he commanded a battleship in the largest fleet ever assembled. Life was strange sometimes. Commodore, we're approaching the drop point, Amy said. All stations battle ready. Daniel ordered. As soon as we drop out of faster-than-light travel, expect enemy contact. The Retribution shook slightly as it prepared to return to normal space. Around them, 807, 456 other ships were doing the same thing. In a moment, they would all appear at the edge of the Krell Prime system at exactly the same time. Dropping out of faster-than-light in 10 seconds. Amy counted down. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Drop. The stars reappeared. And there, hanging in space before them, was Krell Prime. It was a blue and green planet that looked almost like Earth. It orbited a yellow sun that looked almost like Earth's sun. If Daniel didn't know better, he might have thought it was a human colony. But it wasn't a human colony. It was the homeworld of the species that had murdered 1.2 million humans without mercy. Enemy fleet detected, Amy announced. Her voice was steady, but Daniel could hear the tension in it. Sir, I'm reading 84,000 Krell warships. They're in defensive formation around the planet. They brought everything they have, Marcus observed. Good, Daniel said. That means we can end this in one battle. The Krell fleet was impressive. Their ships were large and dark, covered in the same hard shell material as the Krell themselves. They bristled with weapons. Their formation was tight and disciplined. They had been preparing for this moment just like humanity had. But when the Krell sensors detected the human fleet, their formation wavered. Because what appeared before them was beyond their worst nightmares. 456 human warships materialized in perfect formation. They stretched across millions of kilometers of space. The view was so vast that it was impossible to see both ends of the fleet at the same time. From the surface of Krell Prime, it would have looked like a second night had fallen as the human ships blocked out the stars. Admiral Nicole opened a communication channel to the Krell fleet. Her message was broadcast in every language humanity had learned from Krell communications. People of the Krell Dominion, this is Admiral Nicole Carter of the Human Grand Armada. 3 years ago, you attacked our colony world of New Haven. You killed 1.2 million innocent people. You murdered children. You gave no warning and showed no mercy. Her voice was cold and hard. We offer you one chance. Surrender now and face justice for your crimes. Refuse and we will destroy you. You have 10 minutes to decide. For 10 minutes, space was silent. The two fleets faced each other across the void. On Krell Prime, billions of Krell civilians looked up at the sky and saw the human armada. Many of them realized for the first time that their leaders had made a terrible mistake. The Krell response came after 7 minutes. It was not a surrender. Instead, hundreds of Krell warships broke formation and accelerated toward the human fleet. Their weapons began charging and their missile bays opened. The Krell had made their choice. Admiral Nicole's voice rang out across every human ship. All vessels, return fire. Show them what happens when you attack humanity. The Grand Armada opened fire, and space itself seemed to explode. 456 warships unleashed their weapons at the same moment. Missiles by the millions streaked across the darkness like a meteor storm. Energy beams created a web of light that connected the two fleets. Railgun rounds, traveling at incredible speeds, tore through space toward their targets. The Krell ships fired back with everything they had. Their plasma weapons lit up the void. Their torpedoes carried nuclear warheads. Their particle beams cut through human ships like knives through paper. The Krell were skilled warriors and they fought with desperate fury. But they had never faced anything like this. For every human ship the Krell destroyed, 10 more took its place. The human fleet kept coming like a tide that could not be stopped. Human missiles overwhelmed Krell defenses. Human energy weapons burned through Krell shields. Human railguns punched holes in Krell armor. On the bridge of the Retribution, Commodore Daniel Morrison watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. The screen showed thousands of red dots representing Krell ships and hundreds of thousands of blue dots representing human ships. As he watched, red dots began disappearing one by one. Krell battle group approaching from our port side. Amy Phillips called out. I count 200 enemy vessels. Redirect squadrons 17 through 29 to intercept, Daniel ordered calmly. Launch all fighter wings. Let's show them what 5,000 strike craft can do. The Retribution's weapons fired continuously. The ship's main railguns could fire a round every 3 seconds, and each round could destroy a Krell cruiser. The ship's missile batteries launched wave after wave of guided warheads. The point defense lasers shot down incoming Krell missiles. Around the Retribution, thousands of other human ships were doing the same thing. The combined firepower was beyond imagination. It was like trying to stop an avalanche with your bare hands. The Krell fought bravely, but bravery was not enough against such overwhelming numbers. Lieutenant Marcus Cole received a report from Fleet Command. "Sir, the Krell are trying to break through our left flank. They're concentrating 300 ships for a breakthrough attempt." "Notify Admiral Carter," Daniel said. "We'll move to support that section." But Admiral Nicole had already seen the Krell maneuver. From the bridge of the Indomitable, she directed 2,000 human cruisers to reinforce the left flank. The Krell breakthrough was stopped before it could begin. Fleet Admiral Kenneth Hayes sat in his command chair, his old eyes taking in every detail of the battle. He had fought in many wars during his long life, but he had never seen anything like this. The scale was beyond anything in human history. "Sir, the Krell command cluster is taking heavy damage," his tactical officer reported. "Their flagship is losing power." "All heavy dreadnoughts target that flagship," Kenneth ordered. "End their command structure." 200 of humanity's biggest warships turned their weapons on the Krell flagship. It was a massive vessel, 3 kilometers long and covered in weapons, but under the focused fire of 200 dreadnoughts it stood no chance. The ship's shields failed first, then its armor began to melt. Within minutes, the flagship exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from Krell Prime's surface. With their flagship destroyed and their admiral dead, the Krell fleet began to fall apart. Some ships tried to maintain formation and continue fighting. Others tried to flee. Some captains fought to the death while others surrendered, but none escaped. Human pursuit craft tracked down every Krell ship that tried to run. Fast human destroyers chased them across the system. There was no mercy, no hesitation. The humans had come here with one purpose, and they would not stop until it was done. The battle raged for 9 hours. 9 hours of constant fighting, of ships exploding and people dying. The space around Krell Prime became filled with debris from destroyed vessels. The light from weapons fire was so bright that it lit up the planet's night side like a second sun. On the Retribution, Daniel's crew worked without stopping. They had been at battle stations for 9 hours, but nobody complained. They all knew what was at stake. Amy called out targets and Daniel gave orders. Marcus coordinated with the rest of the fleet. Lieutenant Jake Murphy made sure every weapon fired as fast as possible. "Sir, Krell resistance is collapsing," Amy reported. Her voice was hoarse from giving reports for hours. "I'm reading massive surrenders across their fleet. Maybe 2,000 ships are left and most of those are damaged." "Maintain pressure," Daniel ordered. "They showed no mercy to New Haven. We show them what real warriors look like." By the end of the 9th hour, it was over. The Krell fleet was destroyed. 84,000 warships were reduced to floating debris. The mighty Krell Dominion had been broken in a single battle. Humanity's losses were significant but acceptable. 7,200 ships destroyed, 420,000 casualties. It was a terrible price, but compared to what the Krell had done to New Haven, it felt like justice. Admiral Nicole Carter broadcast to the surviving Krell ships and to the planet below. Her face appeared on every screen on Krell Prime. "People of the Krell Dominion, your fleet is destroyed. Your warriors are dead. But we are not you. We do not slaughter civilians without reason. We do not murder children for sport." Her voice became harder. "But understand this. If you ever threaten humanity again, if you ever raise a weapon against any human world, we will return. And next time, we will not stop with your fleet. Surrender now, face justice for your crimes and live. Refuse and your entire species will be erased from existence." The message was clear. Humanity had the power to destroy the Krell completely. They had proven it. The only question was whether the Krell would accept defeat or choose extinction. On Krell Prime, the government met in emergency session. They watched the human fleet orbiting their world and knew they had no choice. Within an hour, they transmitted their unconditional surrender. The terms were harsh but fair. The Krell would disarm completely. They would pay reparations to the families of New Haven's victims. The leaders responsible for ordering the attack would stand trial for war crimes. Krell space would be monitored by human observers for the next 50 years. The Krell had no choice but to agree to everything. As the Grand Armada maintained orbit around Krell Prime, Daniel Morrison stood in his ready room looking down at the alien planet. Somewhere down there, Krell civilians were learning that their leader's decision to attack humanity had nearly destroyed their entire civilization. Amy Phillips entered with 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Daniel and sat down. They had barely slept in the past 2 days. "It's over," she said quietly. "Yes," Daniel agreed. "The fighting is over. Now comes the harder part, building peace." "Do you think they learned their lesson?" Amy asked. Daniel looked at the planet below and thought about the question. "I think they learned that humanity is not weak. I think they learned that when you attack us, we don't run away or surrender. We fight back with everything we have." "Governor Hayes would be proud," Amy said. "We kept our promise," Daniel nodded. Peter Hayes and the other survivors of New Haven were back on Earth, watching the news coverage of the victory. They had lost everything, but at least they knew their loved ones had been avenged. On Earth, celebrations had already begun. People filled the streets of every city, cheering and crying with relief. The war was over. Humanity had won. The colonies were safe. But Daniel knew the real victory was not just military. The real victory was that humanity had proven something to the galaxy. They had proven that humans protected their own. They had proven that attacking one human colony meant facing all of humanity. Every ship, every soldier, every resource. The Krell had wanted to test humanity's will to survive. Instead, they had learned a lesson that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. Never attack humanity, because humanity does not fight with half measures. When pushed, when threatened, when attacked, humanity responds with total commitment. The Krell had killed 1.2 million humans on New Haven. In response, humanity had built 800,000 warships and traveled to the Krell homeworld to deliver justice. It was not revenge. It was a promise kept, a promise that every human life mattered, a promise that the death of even one colony would bring the full force of human civilization down on those responsible. Daniel finished his coffee and prepared to oversee the occupation of Krell Prime. He thought about the future. Other species in the galaxy would hear about this battle. They would hear about how humanity responded to aggression. Some would fear humanity. Others would respect humanity. But all would remember, never again would anyone doubt humanity's resolve. Never again would anyone think humans were weak or easy targets. The Grand Armada had sent a message written in fire and steel across the stars. Humanity was here. Humanity was strong, and humanity would protect its own. No matter the cost, New Haven had fallen, but it had not fallen in vain. Its ashes had been answered with the largest military force in galactic history. Its dead had been avenged by 4.2 billion soldiers who traveled across space to deliver.